This is a quick follow-up to the federal workforce breakdown video. Um, it's specifically talking about veterans DEI and the reduction in force or whatever Trump is calling this. Uh, the term that gets used in this next story is collateral damage, and couple things. The founding fathers did not envision the methods that Elon and Trump are employing. I think one of the things that Madison, in particular, envisioned was a president that actually had, a little bit of gravitas and intention. If you're gonna go and cut the federal workforce, nothing wrong with getting rid of the waste and the fat and all that, but be deliberate about it. This slash and burn Twitter technique that Trump has embraced and Elon is employing, um, it's just, if this is the best that America can produce for president, then I actually do fear for the future. So, with that being said, I'll go ahead and start this story. It's basically concerning Trump's anti DEI orders, how it affects veterans and military spouses.
This story was written by Carla Miller. Work advice: How Trump's anti-DEI orders affect vets and military spouses. A reader asks whether these government workers are considered DEI hires and therefore subject to dismissal. Reader: Are people who were hired under military preference or military spouse preference considered DEI hires? I'm the spouse of a Navy retiree. I became a federal civilian early in his career and was hired under the military spouse program. I know a lot of people who were hired because they were veterans. I'm hoping they will not be impacted by the current administration's actions. Carla. Before I tackle this seemingly straightforward question, let me offer some background for those who are unfamiliar with preference hiring for veterans and military spouses. Under the Veterans Preference Act of 1944, military veterans are entitled to preference in hiring and retention for some federal civilian jobs if they meet certain service-related criteria, periods of duty, disability, discharge. This preference doesn't guarantee them a job, but it grants additional points to veteran candidates who otherwise meet all qualifications. Similarly, spouses and surviving spouses of active duty, disabled, or deceased military members are also eligible to be directly appointed to civilian jobs in federal agencies at each agency's discretion. More background. The day President Donald Trump was inaugurated for his current term, he issued an executive order mandating the termination of all discriminatory programs, including illegal DEI and diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility. DEA mandates policies, programs, preferences, and activities in the federal government. Although diversity, equity, and inclusion, or DEI, is a concept with different connotations depending on whom you ask, DEI programs in general have been under fire from Trump and the MAGA movement, which claims they discriminate against white men. Getting back to the original question, does that special hiring consideration for veterans and military spouses qualify as the kind of DEI preference the Trump administration has in its crosshairs? When I asked the Office of Personnel Management this question, I was directed to its online guidance catalog for clarification. OPM issued memorandums on January 21st, January 24th, and February 5th to clarify the President's executive order on DEI/DEIA programs, the last of which reiterated that federal agencies are required to eliminate DEIA offices, policies, programs, and practices that unlawfully discriminate on the basis of protected characteristics, as well as employee resource groups, ERGs, that promote unlawful DEIA initiatives in recruiting, hiring, and retention. None of these OPM memos explicitly exempts preference-hired veterans or military spouses when discussing DEI programs and protected characteristics. So, presumably, all employees and officials of federal DEI offices, veterans and military spouses included, are prohibited under Trump's order from doing that work, whether they're placed on leave, reassigned, or terminated. Even the veterans' ERG at the State Department, along with other informal employee affinity groups focused on race, gender, disability, and faith, has had to cease all activities, as NBC News recently reported. Note: these actions are not affected by a February 21st federal court injunction restricting the administration's targeting of federal contracts, publicly traded companies, and universities engaged in DEI activity. However, OPM did make special mention of veterans and spouses under other executive orders, which suggests the administration does not consider hiring preferences for veterans and military spouses to be an unlawful DEIA initiative. In a separate memo on the federal hiring freeze also ordered by Trump on January 20th, OPM specified that veterans' preference remains in effect when hiring for national security, immigration enforcement, and other jobs exempt from the freeze. In another memo, issued February 12th, OPM clarified that military spouses of active duty members are categorically exempt from the president's return to office order, ending remote work arrangements for federal workers. But regardless of whether these hires are safe from DEI bans, they haven't been spared in the mass firings of thousands of probationary federal workers, including a pending termination of 5,400 civilian Defense Department employees, whose jobs have nothing to do with DEI. In an article on the early rounds of firings, the Post interviewed a nurse who had moved with her active-duty military husband, as well as a disabled Army veteran father of 4 who served in Iraq and Afghanistan. Both were fired from their civilian federal jobs through canned messages, citing new-to-them performance concerns. The Post also interviewed an Air Force veteran at the Office of Naval Intelligence who said, "Morale is through the floor," after probationary employees were told to expect termination notices. And despite assurances that veterans' benefits would not be affected by the administration's staff cutting and withholding of congressionally appropriated funds, Department of Veterans Affairs offices everywhere are understaffed and struggling to provide services. So, to answer one interpretation of this reader's question, it does not seem that veterans and military spouses hired under preferential rules are among the intended targets of the administration's anti-DEI strategy. But they do seem to have become collateral damage in the broader campaign. But there is another way to look at this question, for which I would like readers' input. If you were hired into a government job under veterans or military spouse preference, did you consider it a diversity, equity, and inclusion program? Let me know at carla.miller@washpost.com. Requests for anonymity will be respected.
Next is a video by a TV station, WVTM, in Birmingham, Alabama. Just a quick I think it's 2 minutes or so, just a response by veterans concerning Trump's DEI orders.
Welcome back in. By now, we all know President Trump has canceled DEI funding, but many may not know that veterans are also included in the group as well.
WVTM 13's Bryce Osland spoke with veterans and the Department of Veteran Affairs on what can be expected moving forward.
Well, becoming a veteran was amazing. Loved my service, did 26 years in the military, loved every day of it.
Retired veteran Charlie Boyd remains proud to have served his country.
It was amazing to me. Co-workers, people I consider family, some that look like me, some that don't. So diversity is a key thing, and I needed to evolve my thinking from a very young man when I joined the military.
President Trump's executive order to end DEI programs and policies will not only cut funding for minorities, but veterans as well. Boyd says the pain of the military force can last a lifetime.
I don't think we need to reduce the money. I'm open to new techniques and practices to help vets, because serving in the military, especially those that serve a long time and retire, you have an accumulation of effects that harm you. I retired in 2011, and I tell people all the time, I'm still transitioning.
The Department of Veteran Affairs released a statement saying, the department has completed its initial implementation of President Trump's executive order. In the coming weeks and months, VA will be working to reallocate these resources to better support veterans, families, and caregivers. Boyd says he hopes to see veterans well taken care of despite the ending of DEI.
People make the assumption that they're going to be replaced with prejudicial practices and whatnot. I don't think we're there yet, right? It's too early to tell. We'll have to see what those practices are. Are we having equality in the military? Just not calling it those terms, right? There's emotionally charged words sometimes. So you have to see how those things are going to play out.
In Birmingham, Bryce Osland, WVTM 13.
So, in conclusion, in my opinion, and it's just my opinion, but what Trump and Elon are doing is just sloppy, if not outright unprofessional. And I kind of expect better out of, a president. But, it's just me. Um, any old Joe Plumber could do the same thing that Elon's doing, the slash and burn tactics. I don't see this as any sort of masterful mastery of politics and leadership and all that stuff. It's just sloppy. So, again, it's just my opinion. Um, again, this is just a follow up to the breakdown of the federal workforce. I thought I'd throw something in there for, about veterans. DEI is more than just, protected classes. Veterans and other affinity groups, they're called, uh, get included in DEI. And it's just, like I said, sloppy, not being able to figure out the nuts and bolts. You just slash and burn, and people kind of get, the baby gets thrown out with the bathwater. But, that's the MAGA way. And, America gets what it voted for. So, if you all would, please make sure you like this video. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe. Everyone share if you know somebody who might be interested in this sort of, commentary. So with that, I will see you all next time. I will probably, do a show on John Galt's Urban Landlord channel tonight. Not sure what time, but stay tuned for that. Thank you all.